half the people on this planet. As of current count, 3.6 billion people claim a religion with its roots in the life of one person. Not Jesus, not Muhammad, but Abraham. Islam, Judaism, and Christianity all trace their roots back to one human being. And this one person who acted on faith and shaped the world, he was amazing. And he's in the stories of all three religions, albeit sometimes told a little bit differently. But he was very human. Abraham could be incredibly loyal, as he was to his nephew Lot.
When Abraham heard that his nephew Lot had been captured, he took all of the loyal men born in his household, 318, and went after the kings as far as Dan. During the night, he and his servants divided themselves up against them, attacked and chased them to Hobah, north of Damascus. He brought back all the looted property, together with his relative Lot and Lot's property, wives, and people.
He could risk it all for his nephew, but he nearly slaughtered his son Isaac. Abraham could be incredibly trusting, leaving his home to journeys to God knows where, all because of a voice that he heard speaking in his head that he believed to be God. But he could also be impatient and doubt that same God when it came to the promise of his wife Sarai having children.
Abraham said, "Lord God, what can you possibly give me, since I still have no children? The head of my household is Eliezer, a man from Damascus." He continued, "Since you haven't given me any children, the head of my household will be my heir." The Lord's word came immediately to him. "This man will not be your heir. Your heir will definitely be your very own biological son." Then he brought Abram outside and said, "Look up at the sky and count the stars, if you think you can count them all." He continued, "This is how many children you will have."
3.6 billion at last counts. But given the moment and the age of both he and Sarai, the prospect of her having kids was not really in the cards. So Sarai decided that the best solution was for her handmaiden, Hagar, to have the baby for her. Abram was good with the plan. So Hagar got pregnant. And this is where the baby mama drama starts kicking in. And it was bad. After Hagar got pregnant, Sarai thought that Hagar might be looking down on her. She was feeling jealous and self-conscious. And so Sarai, she physically and emotionally abused Hagar. And Abram, this great man who talks and influences God, cannot mediate between his two wives. He just steps back.
Abraham said to Sarah, "Since she's your servant, do whatever you wish to her." So Sarah treated Hagar harshly, and she went away from Sarah.
But as happens in way too many households with domestic abuse, Hagar went back to the abusive home. And of course, the abuse continues. It's an old human story. we fall into these patterns of dysfunction and hate. And we have our hearts on one side or the other, the oppressor or the oppressed, the bully or the victim. Or sometimes we pull the Abraham card. We keep our mouths shut. We disengage. We try to be neutral and call ourselves wise in the process, but when you're neutral, you got to know that you're really choosing to side with the bully. And everybody justifies themselves in some way. And the cycle continues. And it continues. Millennia pass. And the descendants of Abraham, Sarai, and Hagar, Christians, Muslims, and Jews, they continue the story. Now, ultimately, Sarah does get pregnant. And she doesn't need Hagar anymore, or Ishmael, her son. And all the years of resentment that she's allowed to build up in her, they all come out.
So one day, Sarah saw Hagar's son laughing, the one Hagar the Egyptian had borne to Abraham. So she said to Abraham, "Send this servant away with her son. This servant's son won't share the inheritance with my son Isaac." This upset Abraham terribly because the boy was his son.
Yeah, Abraham was upset, all right, but not enough to stop from kicking Hagar and Ishmael out into the desert to be on their own. This great man, this leader, this religious patriarch who could be so compassionate, didn't say one word of support for his son or her mom or his mom. He just lets them leave. He sends them away. He had a choice, and he chose to disengage. And we've been living with the repercussions of this story, of this inability to reconcile for thousands of years. It's like a curse. We form our opinions and our prejudices, and we justify them to ourselves, and we try to with God. But the truth is that we remain broken, divided, worlds apart.
I would describe my political views as the new right. Feminism today is amazing.
I would class myself a feminist, 100%.
I don't believe climate change exists. We're not taking enough action on climate change. I don't know how many people got off the handle to start looking at the chemical problems that actually exist.
It's actually useful and has to have the animals.
That's not why we can't look around in there or with them.
Women do need to remember that we need you to have our children.
Could I be having something that was based in Ohio?
Right, okay, well, I'm an expert at flat facts. If you're in trouble, just watch me.
So I've got your instructions here.
I think so.
This right way is like to be used by adjectives.
Okay, frustrating.
Dedicated,
Opinionated.
lucky.
Ambitious. Offensive. Solemn. I have ups and downs.
Strong. I want to say attacked. Misunderstood. Name 3 things
So how about it? I sincerely believe in the power of reconciliation. That we don't need to remain broken and divided. I believe that just as Abraham, Sarah, and Hagar had choices, so do we. Their cycle of dysfunction, fear, even hate do not have to be ours.
God was reconciling the world to himself through Christ by not counting people's sins against them. He has trusted us with this message of reconciliation. So we are ambassadors who represent Christ. God is negotiating with you through us. We beg you, as representatives of Christ, be reconciled.
You know what I saw in that video? Church. I see people choosing to work together in common cause. In their case, to build a table, a bar. Coming to see their differences. But staying at the table. Not counting another person's perceived sins against them. You see, as long as we stay at the table, engaged, not passive, but engaged, as long as we don't have the other person removed from the table, or just get up and leave. There's that moment where that guy acts like he's walking away, and it breaks your heart for that moment. As long as we stay engaged with one another, there's hope. Hope for reconciliation. Hope for friendship and peace. This is the hope for the world that Jesus calls us to break in every generation the cycle of dysfunction and hate. And God knows we need that help now. I think as church, we can demonstrate the power of staying at the table, engaging with hope that this world can be better, that it can be healed. So I invite you now, whoever you are, wherever you're at on your journey, I invite you to the table, which is the central message and symbol and hope of reconciliation. The meaning of what we do here needs you to be an ambassador, a representative of Christ, to carry this hope into a world that needs it. In that spirit of hope, will you join me now around the table of our holy meal?